Abid Raja, you are a member of the OSCE's Ad Hoc Committee on Countering Terrorism. Can you talk a bit about your work in this committee and your recent visits to Paris?
Yeah, it's a great honor for me to be a part of this committee. It's a very important committee to try to find out the reasons for extremism and terrorism in Europe, try to combat those reasons, but also have a good policy, both in the short term but also in the long term. When we visited Paris, the topic for that meeting was the children of foreign terrorist fighters, how to deal with the children. France had at that time some children back in France, and Norway's position, my country's position at that point, was that we will not take any people back at all, neither the adults nor the women, but not even the children. And coming back from Paris in February in Norway, I raised this issue in the media. I raised this issue in the parliament, also with the government, and the government's position, also the prime minister's position in Norway at that point, was that we will not engage in this issue, and we will not try to get some children back.
In this visit to Paris, I understand you met with some government officials and experts and psychologists about the issue of returning foreign terrorist fighters. So what did you actually learn from them, and in terms of best practice that you could implement in Norway?
It was a very strong message given by the French experts. Both we met with the security police, we met with the policy makers, but especially the psychologists and psychiatrists who were dealing with the children, telling us about that, hey, listen, these children are not a danger for the society. And it was really heartbreaking stories, because they were telling that most of these children actually did the reintegration in the French society very well, but those children who were not able to do this reintegration fully, that was not because they were danger for the other children. It was because the children were so sad. They didn't have any lust to have a good life. They didn't play with the other children because they had all the things, the trauma they had experienced. And one of the experts said, it's like when it's like he compared it with the street musicians. It's like when every parent, what do we do when we see some street musicians? We push our children at the front line to see what's actually the musicians are doing. And he said this is what was happening in ISIL area as well. When they were beheading people or they were killing people, and the children were present, so the adults, they actually pushed the children all the way on the front. So many children have seen horrific criminal activities, beheading of people, and they're traumatized. So they are afraid. They're loyal to the parents. They are afraid to telling the psychologists, the psychiatrists, what they have actually experienced. So I think every politician who was there in Paris, our hearts were really moved, and everybody knows that one thing is the adults, the foreign terrorist fighters, and the adults. That's one thing. But the children haven't done anything wrong, and most of these children are, I think 80% of the children in ISIL areas who have the right to come back to Europe because they have European nationals, they're Germans, they're French, they're Belgian, they're Norwegian. 80% of them are under the age of 10, and I think every parent can understand that a child at the age of 6 or 5 or 10 years old, they're not to blame for anything about what the parents have done. So I think we politicians, it was an eye-opener meeting, but it was good to know from the professionals that these children are not a danger to the society, and they will be easily to integrate them back to schools.
And if you have one message to the governments and parliaments of the OSCE area on this issue of reintegrating foreign terrorist fighters and children in this situation, what would that be?
Well, I took the message back from Paris and the meeting we had in Paris to Norway. I implemented that in the Norwegian parliament, raised the issue in the parliament, I raised the issue with the government and in the media, and that turned Norwegian prime minister. Before, she didn't want to bring any children back. Now the policy of Norway is that we are bringing children back. We have already brought back the children who are, they don't have any parents left, but we are now also working on bringing the other children back to Norway. So my encouragement to all people in all Europe will be, put aside the first question of the adults, forget about them for a moment, but let's focus on the children, because I think this is the one thing we can agree on. No children should be left in camps like Al-Hol in Syria. They should be brought back to Europe, and I think all my colleagues in all parliaments in OSCE countries should encourage their governments to work on this issue, because in the long run, what will happen with these children when they become adults, they will be radicalized, and as one French security police officer said it to us, then they will be sent back as human missiles as adults if they're radicalized. So I think it is in our own best interest to get these children back as soon as possible.
Well, thank you very much for talking with us, and good luck with all of your work in this committee.